Okay, so we are going to start with 4.1 part 3. If you have started watching these videos and you did not complete your survey, if you were supposed to complete the survey, then you need to do that at this time because it is required. If you were on the list of people that needed to do it, if you are not on the list, it's because you didn't turn in some form. I don't know. They just send me an email like you got to fill out these surveys. So hopefully you guys did that. You have some extra time. So with the assembly schedule. So hopefully this isn't too much work for you guys. So this is 4.1 day 3. In this lesson, we're going to talk about parallel and perpendicular lines. So this isn't really anything new. You guys have done parallel and perpendicular lines in both Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. If you remember correctly, parallel lines have the same slope, and perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. So an example of two lines that have parallel slopes would be one having a slope of 2, and the other one having a slope of 2. An example of two lines that would be perpendicular, if I have a slope of 2 over 1, then the perpendicular line is going to be, I'm going to flip it, and then I'm going to change the sign. So -1/2. So opposite reciprocal means opposite sign, and then reciprocal. So since it means opposite sign, if I have a slope that is -1/3, and I want the perpendicular one to that, I'm going to flip it and change the sign. If it was already negative, mine becomes positive. So when we say opposite reciprocal, it's the opposite sign, and then reciprocal is just the flip version. So first we're going to look at, okay, if I give you some lines. So my first example says identify the functions whose graphs are a pair of parallel lines and a pair of perpendicular lines. Also, I hope you guys know that like upside down T means perpendicular. I hope you've seen that before. So they're going to give us 4 equations. So they give us f of x. The equation of f of x is 2x plus 3. G of x is 1/2 x minus 4. H of x is -2x plus 2. And J, I think I called that J of x, but that's H of x. And then now this is J of x, which is 2x minus 6. So I'm trying to decide which ones are parallel and which one's perpendicular. So what I'm going to go through and do in each of these is I'm going to write next to it what is the slope. So in this equation, my slope is 2. In this one, my slope is 1/2. In this one, my slope is -2. And in this one, my slope is +2. So if I want the two lines that are parallel, I want the two lines that have the exact same slope. So if you look at what we have, it should be f of x and j of x. So those are two parallels. And then your perpendiculars would be the other two, obviously, because this one's 1/2, and then this one's the flip version of it and the opposite sign. So h of x and g of x. And they may give you, like when you're doing these, we may give you a graph and ask you to tell me which ones are parallel, perpendicular. We may give you points and tell you to find all the slopes and then decide whether they're parallel or perpendicular. It kind of just depends. So, you know, and it could be neither. Like the directions on the homework say determine whether the lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. If I have one that's 2 and the other one that's -2, and then those are my only two options, Those would be neither because they're not the same and they're not opposite reciprocals. So they could be parallel, they could be perpendicular, or they could just be two random lines. So, yeah, okay. So now what we're going to do in our second example is we're going to look at how to write the equation of a line that's parallel to, so they're going to give me a line and a point, and they're going to say, okay, write me an equation that goes through that point, but that is parallel to the original line that they gave me, okay? So if I want to write the given an equation, and a point on another line, to write the equation of the second line, you're going to follow the following, like the process. So you're going to find the slope of the first line. So the one they gave you, you're going to find the slope of that line. And then using that slope, find the slope of your new line. So what that means is, like if the slope of the original line is 2 and they tell me it's parallel, then I know my slope of my new line is also 2. So that's what I mean by like find the slope of your line using the one they gave us, because they're going to give us a line. We want ours to be either parallel or perpendicular to that one. So it's either going to be the same slope or it's going to be the opposite reciprocal slope. And then you're going to use the point slope formula. To find the equation of the new line. And if you're not done writing, you can always pause this or do whatever you need to do. All right, so let's look at an example. So find the line parallel to f of x equals 3x plus 6 that passes through three zero. So they gave me this line, 3x plus 6. I want to write a new equation for another line that's going to be parallel to that one. So the slope of this line is 3. So if my line is going to be parallel to that, then my slope is also going to be 3. So if you remember point slope form, point slope is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, where x1 and y1 are a point. Well, they gave me a point. There's my x1, there's my y1. Now I have the m, because I got it from the other equation. I can sub all those values in and then simplify the equation so that I can write a new equation. So I'm going to substitute all that stuff in, and I get y minus 0 equals 3 times x minus 3. So go ahead and distribute. You get y minus 0 equals 3x minus 9. This is just 0, so I get y equals 3x minus 9. And that is the equation of the new line. So the original line they gave us, 3x plus 6, and the equation I got, 3x minus 9, those lines are going to be parallel, and 3x minus 9 goes through the point 3, 0. So we have finished that problem. You can do one that's similar, like it's a similar process for perpendicular, but instead of like if we wanted to write the line that was perpendicular to this, then instead of my slope being 3, the slope of my new line is going to be negative 1/3 because it's going to be the opposite reciprocal. And then it's the same process on that, okay? So we're going to go ahead and go through and do that example. So it says, find the equation of a line, perpendicular to f of x equals 3x plus 3 that passes through 3, 0. So again, I'm writing a brand new equation. And my equation has to be perpendicular to the one they gave me. So if the slope of this line is 3, that means the slope of my line is going to be the reciprocal of that, which is 1/3. And it's going to be the negative of it because it's the opposite reciprocal. This is my x1 again. This is my y1 again. And I'm still going to plug into y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So I have y minus, well, my y1 value is 0, equals negative 1/3 times x minus 3. Go ahead and distribute. This is just going to give me y, so y equals negative 1/3 x, and then negative 1/3 times a negative 3 should be a positive 1. And so my new equation is y equals negative 1/3 x plus 1. Okay, so the last example is basically the same thing as these two examples. The only difference here is that they are not going to give me a line. They're going to give me, we're just going to go ahead and do it. So it says a line passes through negative 2, 6, and 4, 5. Find the equation that goes through the point 4, 5. So line 1 is going through these 2 points. Okay? I want to write the equation for line 2, and line 2 is going to go just through 4, 5. Okay? So what I need to do, I'm sorry, there was like a whole thing that I forgot to put into this. I'm really sorry. Find the equation of a perpendicular line that goes through 4, 5. I'm sorry, like that was like a key piece of information. So what I need to do is I need to find the slope of line 1, because then my slope is going to be an opposite reciprocal of that. So for line 2, it's going to be an opposite reciprocal. So for line 1, to find the slope, we're going to do m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I'm going to do 6 minus 5 over negative 2 minus 4. So that gives me 1 over negative 6. So if line 1's slope is 1 over negative 6, that means line 2's slope is 6, because it's going to be the flip version, opposite sign. Okay? So now I have a slope and a point, so I can do my point slope formula. So y minus, well, the y value here is 5, equals 6 times x minus, well, the x value is 4. Go ahead and distribute and solve. So y minus 5 equals 6x minus 24. Add 5 to both sides. So y equals 6x minus 19. And that's your equation. So that's all for 4.1. And obviously, like, pause if you need to, if you're still writing. But your homework for 4.1 part 3, which will be due, today's Thursday, Friday, Monday, let's do Monday, is page 304, and you're going to do 37 through 55. All. Normally I probably wouldn't have given you all, but since I'm not here and you have like a really long extended hour, just a little bit for you. I'm going to go ahead and record 4.2 in a separate video, but they'll both be attached to the same thing. So, anyway, 4.1 part 3, good luck.